There's a lot of stigma today around pushing the weight and training till failure and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, if you're not doing the form correctly, then you're A, prone for injury, 2, not getting the right muscle connection that you need to actually develop and grow from that exercise that you're doing.
That's right.
So it's...
Hello and welcome back to the Fit Minds podcast on Spotify and on YouTube. It's just a YouTube video, isn't it? It's not even a podcast. Vlog on YouTube.
Vlog.
I've already stuffed the beginning. We're going to keep going.
Keep the ball rolling.
Just keep going. Today we're going to be talking about training intensity. Are you training hard enough or are you training too hard? What's the difference between the two? I have kind of somewhat touched on this topic in another podcast with overtraining and stretching, overreaching, all that type of stuff. But I want to talk about it with Chloe, with somebody else who, I don't know whether you've been on both sides of the fence. I know which side of the fence you usually sit on.
I think I feel like I'm right in the middle. Sometimes. It depends on a lot of different factors. Like I remember when I first got into fitness, I used to think that if I was going home and I wasn't fatigued or sweating or puffed or whatever, that I wasn't working hard enough. Or that if I wasn't sore the next day, that I didn't have a good session the day before. Whereas now, as I develop and have more knowledge around it, the intensity that you're training at isn't dependent on the way that you feel the next day. No,
because we know now that things like DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, for those who don't know what DOMS are, and fatigue and, feeling like you can't walk and all that type of stuff, that tends to happen more in the early phases of beginning training. And we know the reasons for that is because the muscle hasn't become adapted to that stimulus yet. It's a new stimulus, or it's, something you haven't been doing in a while. You've had time off and come back, you're probably going to be sore. You're probably going to have trouble.
Also dependent on where you are in your cycle as a female as well.
Yes. Different types of soreness too. Like we could have muscle soreness or you could have joint soreness.
Yeah.
And joint soreness is probably something that you don't want.
No.
So all these people going and doing, like, I know I rave on about, I must be a big fan of F45. F45 are about to sue me, I think.
Yeah. They're coming for you.
They're coming for me. Maybe I should just call them something else, like, I don't know, F55. And that way...
Group training.
Yeah. Just any sort of ridiculous group training where they're thrashing and bashing you with jump squats and box jumps and all sorts of crazy shit. But people kind of finish those sessions and they're like, I'm really sore, and you got to ask them, where are you sore? Oh, my back.
My knees.
My knees, my neck.
My elbows.
From doing planks.
And
my shoulders. Oh, I'm sore all over. And it's like, are any of your muscles actually sore? No. If your joints are sore, that's a concern.
Yeah.
Are you training too hard if your joints are sore? Or is it not even too hard, but are you training incorrectly?
I was going to say form and stuff like that, usually.
And as well, too, if you're going straight from a box jump into a burpee, into a whatever, and you're rushing, and it's about,
about time.
Doing it as much as quick as possible, like CrossFit as well, right?
Yeah.
See the CrossFitters. Don't get me wrong, CrossFitters can probably do things in a way that doesn't injure them.
A lot of CrossFitters, though, they train for that.
That's right.
Like that is their whole lives. Whereas if those sorts of like high intensity group training, it's just you're just
rocking up one day and doing a random workout.
Yeah.
CrossFit and F45 have some of the highest injury rates out of all sports in general. Wow. Yeah. The stats are pretty
intense.
And it's F45 specifically.
Yeah, okay.
Not just group training, like that company.
Yeah, wow.
Injures a lot of people.
Well, I think they're actually going bust.
I'm not surprised. It was, we're starting off with banging on about F45, but...
What is the real purpose?
If you ever listen to my podcast, you must think I've got a vendetta against F45. I've never even done an F45 session.
I have.
True. Everyone's done it.
Yeah, when I first got back into it after having
It's like
Sienna.
I shouldn't say what it is of the fitness industry, but everyone's been there, right?
Yeah.
I call them the McDonald's of the fitness industry. You know, yeah, it gets a job done. Like, they make food. Is it edible? Should you be eating it? You know, probably
Yes.
not. Chloe and I have very different opinions on McDonald's. But look, there's a difference between, so we're going to talk about, you know, are you training too hard? Are you thrashing and bashing yourself? Or are you not training hard enough, right? I think first we'll talk about not training hard enough, because I think, who do you believe would be the worst for this of all types? I hate saying that, stereotypes, but which kinds of people would be not training
Probably
hard enough?
like your Gen Pop, like your newbies.
Yeah.
Just from lack of experience and lack of knowing their self capabilities.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people underestimate how strong they actually are.
And then they kind of undercut themselves almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the same token too, there are some PTs out there that are getting, you know, new clients into the gym, and they're training them and they are flogging them silly, and then they can't come back for days on end because they're, you know, too sore.
I used to have a trainer like that.
Yes, we've spoken about that. And I know you mentioned to me that because that's training too hard.
Yeah,
it depends on where you are, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning, if you're a newbie, or if you're, you know, whether you're well-rounded and you've been to the gym plenty of times before, you've got to figure out where your tether is.
Exactly.
Right? And sometimes it feels like shooting a dart, you know, at a board and with a blindfold, because especially if you've taken time off, like myself, I took 6 weeks off. You know, where do I start?
Yeah.
You know, what weight do I do? Because how do we know how much we've regressed?
Yeah. Well, I'm even like that when I have like a new exercise that I've never done before.
That's right.
You know?
When I throw something in your program and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Like that fucking...
Nordic curls?
No, not the Nordic. I know how to do a Nordic, but the...
No one likes
roller hack squat thing.
Oh, the foam roller hack squat. Yeah, I started getting a fascination with that because I was doing them while I was away once. Like, this is great for quads. I'm going to program some of these in here somewhere.
I think I did it like once and was like, nah, I'm doing a normal hack squat.
But it's funny because I had another client who did it and she was like, holy shit, I'm using my quads like I never had before.
Yeah.
So
I think just because I'm really unco.
You're also very strong. So I don't think you'd get much out of a foam roller hack squat.
Yeah.
But I would have paid to see that. You setting up.
Trying to set up with a mission.
Just flailing with this foam roller. Fucking right.
Yeah, and because I'm short too, like...
Substitute exercise.
Yeah, literally, hack squat. Give me a proper machine.
No, you need to work on your stability and your form, and you need to use the foam roller. But yeah, it didn't last very long, did it? I think it lasted a week, maybe.
Yeah. I think I did it once and I was like, Mariah, sorry, I'm not doing this.
I'm trying to get behind this.
Yeah.
Can't. Yeah, so anyway, we digress.
Yeah.
Not training hard enough. Mm-hmm. I would say yes, newbies, for sure.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. When they first start, I think it's about feeling out the movements. Mm-hmm. You're starting your program. You know, if you're going to do a lat pull down, just learn how to do a lat pull down before you put load on.
And that's the thing. I think there's a lot of stigma today around like pushing the weight and training till failure and all this sort of stuff. And it's like if you're not doing the form correctly, then you're A, prone for injury, 2, not getting the right muscle connection that you need to actually develop and grow from that exercise that you're doing.
That's right.
So it's just like, why not? And there's lots of, like, you've got, like, the ego lifting and all that.
Are you just throwing your weight around or are you actually feeling it where you should be feeling it?
Yeah. It's hard to find that happy medium of I want to feel out the exercise and I want to get the right muscle contractions and drop the weight and able to do that. But then it's also like, is this too easy? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself when you're training in general. Like, and then we delve into, like, the... like the
RP,
yeah. So like your like the intensity and
reps in reserve and rate of perceived exertion, which I'm going to be honest, like everyday people, Gen Pop clients, they're not going to care about a scale. You know, they're going to go, why am I thinking about another scale when I'm already trying to remember my weights and put them in my program? It's a concept that if you imagine that if you have like a football player, right, experienced football player, he's been playing for 6-7 years, and he's been turning up to training sessions for 6-7 years. He's been, you know, he's had his pre-seasons, he's had his, you know, game season. Like, it's basically very well-rounded, well-versed. He knows what he's doing. His body's very used to it. Mm-hmm. So he's established these muscular adaptations. He or her, sorry, some women can play football. You did play football. But you're this athlete. And they're not focusing on going, I want to be as sore as possible, or I want to, you know, like, you don't have footy players go, I didn't play a very good game because I'm not in pain today.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, 9 times out of 10 you are in pain, but...
Yeah. Let's be honest, it's football. But they're thinking about their performance.
Yeah.
They're thinking about the efficacy. They're thinking about how efficient have I been?
Yeah.
You know, could I have done this a little bit better? Could I have converted that trial? Could I have... And so they're thinking about whether or not they're achieving what they've set out to achieve.
Yeah, exactly right.
And it's exactly the same with bodybuilding.
Yeah.
The problem is that we can't see it from a performance perspective. We can only see it from strength going up and increasing and from muscle growing over time.
Yeah.
I think that the two common issues I've seen over the years of coaching is that women, sorry guys, women, girls, they tend to undertrain.
Yeah.
Significantly. Like, women tend to sell themselves short.
Yeah.
You know, for a couple of reasons. They think they're not strong enough. They assume that they're weak.
Yeah.
They assume that they're not capable. They assume that, well, I'm a woman, so I can't lift that weight.
Yeah.
Safety. They're worried about hurting themselves.
Yeah.
And they don't have the ego behind them. They don't have that raging testosterone to tell them to go lift heavy shit. You know, men are like, I'm going to go do a 150 PR. Oh! And it's like, okay, bro, good luck with that shoulder recon.
Yeah.
And then the third reason is because they're afraid of getting too big.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Right? So we've got this huge group of women out there who are, fuck me, still doing Pilates and expecting to...
Yeah.
You know, like, and I'm not hating on people who do Pilates.
I was going to say, my mum does Pilates. She's going to come for you.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, movement is movement.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Pilates is terrible, but I'm saying people who are still doing Pilates expecting to then have muscles that are the size of bodybuilders.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. You'll grow a small amount of muscle because Pilates is resistance against the body.
Yeah.
I think Pilates is fucking tastic for like those aging and obviously like postpartum as well, because it's not so intense.
Yeah.
Not against Pilates, but it's the fact that people might go to Pilates with this concept that they're going to come out with a six-pack, or they're going to come out with, you know...
a jack bum and...
Yeah, a big booty. No.
Yeah.
You are going to probably end up with a small amount of muscle on whatever frame that you've got.
Yeah.
And that's just,
that.
you know, you don't see jacked people coming out of Pilates, or even particularly muscly people. And that's fine. If you don't want to be super muscly, then just do Pilates. But the problem is a lot of women are limiting themselves. And so they're going, well, I'm going to the gym and I'm going to go do my 2 kilo dumbbell lateral raises.
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times. Like,
and then they question, why am I not putting on any muscle?
or like, why can't I see as much definition?
Yeah.
You know, why are my arms not toning up?
Yeah.
And it's this, and I watch them with their 2 kilo dumbbells. I'm like, it's flying up.
Yeah,
Like,
and like week after week they don't progress.
that's right. They're not adding weight onto it. They're
Yeah.
just going in and doing 2 kilo,
Yeah.
2 kilo, 2 kilo. Very different if you, for example, are progressing and then let's say you're stuck on the 6s or 7s.
Yeah.
And you know you're stuck on them.
Yeah, it's like me with shoulders, I swear. Like, and I think the thing as well is I was very, very hard on myself when I wasn't hitting PBs weekly, you know, like progressing
it's almost
every
like we have
single
this weird
week.
expectancy of it.
Yeah, and like I felt like I was failing at my training, but I then realised that progressive overload doesn't always have to be established around weight.
No.
You know, like if
Reps,
yeah,
time and attention.
if there was, say, time of the month and, you know, your strength isn't as high as it should be, dropping the weight back and time and attention and more reps and stuff like that.
For those who don't know what time and attention is, it's literally just holding the weight in the position where you feel it the most in the muscles that you're meant to be working.
Yeah, so like say, for example, if you're doing like a hack squat, you hold it that 90 degree for a couple of seconds, or your slow eccentric. So when you're coming down, it's nice and slow, and then
eccentric, concentric as well is literally just like the part of the exercise that should be the easiest, and then the hardest. And so concentric should be the easiest. It's the contraction and like where you're actually getting the muscle to do its thing. However, it's on the eccentric that we tear muscle. So it's on the letdown. But the eccentric is different for different movements.
You're exactly right.
So like your lat pull down, concentric, eccentric, because it's obviously releasing it. But if you think about anything, like if you're doing an exercise, if you're mindful of the up down or the down up or whatever of whatever you're doing, and you think to yourself, where am I struggling? Where is this? Where does right? You know, that bit was very hard. And so then you can think about, without even having to get someone to tell you what the concentric or eccentric part of that is, think about, where am I struggling to hold this weight? You know, and then hold it. And not struggling in your joints, struggling in the muscle groups. So, and that will be different for different people as well, depending on their structures.
Exactly right.
So I'm glad that you don't think that way anymore. The progression doesn't look like hitting PBs every week. You know, sometimes you've got to plateau to progress. So undertraining, I think I used to be a chronic undertrainer.
Out of fear of getting too big.
I was probably 19. Like, honestly, it was like 11 years ago. And also my other reason for undertraining was that I wasn't eating enough. So, you know, let's rewind 10, 11 years when I first started doing weights and I was on the treadmill and I was afraid of just even doing weights. Because I was like, oh, you know, I won't be long and lean. I'll be like bulky.
You see, I never went through that phase of wanting to be, like, I wanted to be
There's
skinny.
an age gap between us. So I was in the era where it wasn't popular to do weights when I was 19, 20. Like, it was, the thigh gap was still a thing.
I think like it was when I was like 16, 16.
That checks out around the same time.
But I wasn't about it. I didn't want to, like, I wanted to be thin, but I also wanted to have muscles.
Nice. I think it also depends on where you grew up too. Like, I grew up in Bundaberg, and still it's a foreign idea to have muscles in Bundaberg. I swear they're in a time, it's like so backwards to have muscles. Another 10 years they'll come around.
They'll be there. Just delayed.
But I think that, so the undertraining is like women, I think men overtrain typically. I've seen a lot of men overtrain. They push themselves so hard because it's all about, not just about ego, but also that they don't want to see themselves as a disappointment. They're
very self-critical.
It's not just macho, toxic masculinity. Exactly. It's more like, I don't want to be a pussy. You know, they want to.
I don't want to fail.
I don't want to fail myself. And I think that there is a particular population of women who fall into that as well, which would be you and I currently, where we go, I used to be able to do this, or you know,
it was really hard for me during prep
because you lose a lot of strength.
But like even now, and like it's like reverse psychology now. Like in my off season, I'm like, all right, bitch, well you're eating so much, you should be able to lift more. You know?
Oh yeah, it's like kind of like, I've got the opportunity, why am I not doing this? And it all comes back to that concept though that I say this to my clients all the time when they get sick and they regress with their weights. I explain to them how complex immune function is, and it takes weeks,
a long time,
weeks to overcome something that has just completely rocked your system. You might not have all the physical symptoms still. You may not be sneezing and coughing and all that type of stuff.
But your body's still in recovery.
Correct. There's cells. It literally killed cells in your body, and you're expecting your body to just bounce back from that. It's not going to happen for anybody. No one's going to come back from a cold and come back on Monday and go, fuck yeah, I'm stronger than ever. So there's that, you know, in times where you need to regress, when you do for your period, when you're in comp prep and you probably don't have as much strength as what you did before and you don't have to hit PBs, you can, but you don't necessarily need to. If you can't and you know that you're on the verge of maybe injuring yourself, stop, you know, think about that for a second. But that's where the RPE and RIR scale comes in handy. It comes in handy on both ends, right? Because you've got over here where it's like for the chronic undertrainers, you know, am I exerting myself enough? And you can Google RPE, RIR, it's really easy. I prefer to use RPE.
Yeah.
Reps in reserve, I don't mind it, but it's kind of like, how do you know how many reps you've got in reserve?
I was going to say, like, how do you dictate that?
Yeah, I've got another 2. Yeah, I've got another 3.
Yeah.
It's like, well, do you? Or, you know, do you have more than what you thought you did? Oh, I've
Yeah.
only got 1 left. And
Yeah, well, they
you get
usually
more.
establish, like, say, so for your 8 RPE, you've got 2 reps in reserve.
Yeah, the equal
Yeah.
measurement. Yeah, and I like RPE because it's really like, you know, are you at an 8 or 9? Like, are you fucking, I can't breathe, can't hold a conversation? That would be probably more for your heavy leg sessions.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to get to that point in an isolation exercise.
No.
You might, in a squat, deadlift, leg press, high RPE.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
If it's not, and you're doing a leg press, and you can have a conversation with someone, you're not training hard
enough.
You know, unless you're in rehab, unless you have an injury, in which case probably don't go to 8 RPE.
Yeah.
I always talk about percentage of capacity as well.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like at the moment I'm probably going in with my compounds at gym and trying to do 70% capacity, maybe even 80%. Now I'm starting to kind of pick back up again.
Yeah.
But I started at, 50, 60% capacity, which was my previous capacity, but just going, cool, I've, just gone through something pretty extensive. Probably need to pull this back a little bit.
Yeah, exactly right.
And that can be a percentage of the weights you were doing prior.
Yeah.
So that's just like, okay, cool. What was I doing before? I was doing, I don't know, 80 kilos. I might go in at 50 or 60.
Yeah.
And just gauge it by doing that.
Yeah.
And you're not wasting time.
No.
It's not like if you go back in slightly lighter, it's not going to hurt. You just the next session, if
movement is movement. Yeah.
Go up a little bit more, or. But the chronic under trainers grind my gears because they might be with a coach for 6 months to a year and go, I don't really see much for change.
Yeah.
And
it's like, let's have a look and see.
Yeah, and you even say to them, you might even have said prior, I think you're capable of doing a lot heavier on a hip thrust. I can, they might go, oh, I'm doing 20, 40 kilos on a hip thrust, and they've been doing hip thrust for 6 months.
Yeah, there's no progression.
And you every time going, I can see that you can progress here. Like you can go up here. I know that you can. Another thing too is the psychological side.
I was going to say it's definitely a mental game, isn't it?
Well, I'll use a great example. I used to always hold myself back in my training based on what I was currently lifting, right?
Yeah.
So quad extensions are a very good example, and hamstring curls. In the off season, I think I was starting at around 60 kilo quad extensions, or maybe just under that, right? And I was in my head thinking I've never gone heavier than this.
Yeah.
Never gone heavier. So it's pretty scary. I got up to 100 kilo quad extensions in my off season.
Jesus.
Mind you, I was strapped in, I was holding on with straps, because if you don't weigh 100 kilos, how are you meant to quad extension? Not very effective. And that was pretty awesome. Had to step it back a bit because the form's probably not perfect, and that's where your ego has to go on the back burner, and you have to go, okay, maybe this is too much. I'll go back a bit. But then that took 6 months, right? 7 months or whatever to get from say 60 to 100, then back to say 95. Yeah, 90
comfortably.
Yeah, and then obviously going through the pregnancy and then getting through recovery. I went back to quad extensions and I could only do 30 kilos, 33 kilos, not even kidding, after 6 weeks off, not to scare you. And I was like, fuck, that's bad, and I realized it was my core, it was my stomach that couldn't take it. It wasn't my legs.
Yeah.
The next week, I'd only been back a couple sessions, 2, 3 maybe. The next week, I was right back up to 68 kilo quad extensions. And I think very, very comfortably doing between 68 and 70 something now, right?
Yeah.
That's 1 week of difference between muscle memory, but also psychologically.
Yeah.
I knew I had been at those heavier weights before.
Exactly right.
Wasn't so scary.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you've been there before. Not that your muscle is capable of doing it right now, but I think when we have gone to this weight and this weight, and this is our top weight, we look at anything above that as scary. Yeah. Mentally, we're like, I don't know whether I want to attempt that because I might get 3 reps, you know.
It's also about like feeling comfortable as well. Correct. It's like, all right, I know I'm comfortable here doing 12 reps of say however much weight.
Yep.
You know, am I going to fail? You know, it's a concept of understanding that you may fail, but you're not going to know until you try.
And the other thing you've got to consider in that is, if I fail, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
If you fail on a quad extension,
meh.
I mean, sometimes you might put the knee under enough tension that, a tendon could snap or pop.
Yeah.
I know people think it's going to happen all the time. It doesn't. Most of the time, it's your hip flexors that give out anyway. So, but, you know, worst case scenario, what could happen? I could injure myself. So what I always do is, with high risk lifts, they're the ones that I get a spotter for.
Yeah.
And that I don't.
Yeah. It's like for me, usually if I'm attempting to hit a PR on anything, especially when it comes to legs, I'll always get Josh to come help me out.
Just for even for the final part of the rep.
Yeah. And even if it's just for the like morale, like.
Yeah, encouragement.
Yeah.
100%. Because if it's mentally scary to you, maybe to someone on the outside it might not be.
Yeah, well, Josh has pushed me on so many different occasions where he's like, all right, you got 2 more. And I'm like, I don't. And he's like, you do.
Breaking past the plateau. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's great.
But I think, something like for example, this is not us saying go and do a heavy back squat by yourself and fucking break your back, or a heavy deadlift by yourself. I think we know that with heavy weights, it's small increments.
Yeah.
And with upper body, it takes forever to add the smallest amount of weight onto that as well.
Yeah.
But if you're able to stack on another 10 or a 15 kilo plate or something to a leg press or whatever, and like you're still getting through the range of motion, it doesn't feel like your back's kicking in, like you probably weren't lifting heavy enough before.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just something you're going to have to swallow and go, cool, I'm not going to go back to that weight I was doing.
Yeah.
Which was, I actually watch some girls in the gym, not judging, but they'll put like, a 10 kilo plate on either side of a leg press. And I feel like whispering in their ear, you can do more.
So much more.
You can do more.
Well, but then like...
when you can see that they've got muscle.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you've been here ages. You can do more. You can do more.
Well, it's like, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but there'll be occasions where, because we have 2 leg press machines next to each other, and I'm stacking on like 5-6 plates aside as a warm up, and you've got all love next to me, and I'm like, come on, use me as a little bit of...
I know. Even some blokes as well, and like I just want to tell them, like they go, oh, that's really impressive, and I'm like, no, you could do this too.
Yeah.
Heavy leg press is actually a really interesting one. Like, it's something I have been doing since I was younger, like since 2021 was heavy leg press, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a badass thing, but we've all seen that video where the guy snaps his knees with the cringe. Sorry guys to put that image in your head, but that doesn't necessarily happen if you're not locking your knees out. Like if you're bracing your knees.
Yeah.
Also, you're not that guy. Like you're not going to stack the entire thing and put a person on top or anything like that. But no, I would agree. I think that I get really disheartened, not judging, I get disheartened for women who limit themselves.
Yeah.
Because we are not jealous of them. We want them to do better,
succeed.
keep going, like go higher and but take their time, obviously.
Yeah.
Each person has to take their time.
I always found it quite interesting because I was in a situation a while ago, like maybe a couple of years ago, where I'd seen this woman doing RDLs and lifting very, very light, and her form was shocking. And I was in that frame of mind of, do I go over there and help her?
It's a hard one. It's a really hard one because then you put yourself in their shoes. Would I want this person coming to help me?
Yeah. And I actually put a poll up on my Instagram and I was like, would you want the help? And a lot of people were like, nah. And I'm like...
it's like they'd rather get injured.
Yeah.
I think
it's the way you go about it too.
Anytime anyone ever approached me about my form in the gym, I got pissed off.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably because if you think about it, you're already vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then you're like, people walk to the gym and they're embarrassed and they think, oh, maybe I'm not doing this right.
Yeah.
What I think needs to happen more is that people need to reach out to have coaches more.
Yeah, exactly.
They need to reach out for more help from professionals. Because honestly, trust me, I've been in the same situation. I've been in gyms for, ever, 11 years. And I was exactly the same. I used to want to help people and go, oh my God, like, oh, that's making me like cringe.
But not in a bad way. It's more,
It's more like I'm worried about you.
Yeah.
But I also found that there was like an example of where we did help a guy and we went up to him and said like, hey, you know, same thing, deadlift form is usually the biggest thing. And he's like, no, you know, I've been told this is fine. And like, so the interactions are never very positive.
Yeah. Maybe it's just the way you go about it. Like if I was to approach it, it would be like, hey, like question at first, like, would you like, I've just noticed your form doing this. Would you like me to help you?
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
But
it's hard.
If they say no, then they say no. But if they're like, yeah, please, then you're able to
continue
dictate that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there are more people in gyms these days that aren't getting the help they need. And like, whether it's form, whether it's how hard they're training. The other thing is too, is there are some trainers out there that don't understand RPE, and can't gauge with their client when they've pushed them too hard, or, you know, when their client might just be going through the motions and just, oh no, I'll just take the 2s or the 3s, because, you know, it's like finding that balance. But I think we've talked about not vomiting during sessions.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times.
Don't vomit during sessions. Yeah, so not wanting to vomit during a training session. Sorry, we had to reconvene. We've now got a baby. If you're watching on YouTube, it's just we've photoshopped a baby in. Yeah, for authenticity.
Resumed same position,
exactly same position. We've also had snacks.
Yeah, we were like, fuck, we're hungry.
So not wanting to vomit in a training session, like you've seen the people glorify that. Oh, I threw up in my training session.
I must have pushed really hard.
My trainer is really good. They pushed me so much that I vomited. I once had a client that I pushed to the point of vomiting, didn't mean to, but he didn't say anything. He was like silent the whole session. And then he's like, I gotta go to the toilet. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, no worries. And then he came back, he's like, I just threw up. And I was like, I am so sorry. Like, that's not meant to happen. And he's like, no, it's good. You know, it means you must have pushed me. And I was like, that is not a good sign. That, you know, we think harder sometimes, and this is towards the next topic, harder is better. The harder the better. And if I throw up, awesome. You know, but what does throwing up mean?
Yeah, your body's pretty much in shock.
It's in shock, it's not coping. Like, yeah, you push pretty hard, but you've gone over the edge.
Yeah.
Like, and you think you're throwing up food, probably water. So you're dehydrated now.
And now you've got to continue the rest of your session with no carbs.
With no carbs and no hydration.
No hydration, yeah.
And now you've got an upset stomach and, you know, it's not going to work very well. So, but I guess that puts us towards the topic of, if you're training too hard, what are some of the signs? Sorry, guys, if you can hear my baby in the background. There's some cute little ASMR dummy noises. What are the signs you're training too hard? You know, things like central nervous system fatigue. So we've all been there where we've done a session that was just too heavy, too hard, too intense, and we can't sleep. We can't function. I lose my appetite if I've trained too hard, if I've trained really intensively. And I often feel like going back the next day is torture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's like I can't even lift weights the next day.
Yep. Yeah, I don't necessarily lose my appetite, but I do get nauseous. I do get...
Yeah, you feel sick.
Like quite dizzy, short of breath. You almost feel like you're about to pass out.
Yeah. And even the whole trouble sleeping stuff, like I find I toss and turn really badly.
Yeah,
it's the worst sleep.
Really wide.
Yeah, it feels like you've had like 10 coffees.
Yeah.
So that's your central nervous system going, like, ease up, I've had enough. Yeah. And that's when you know that maybe the volume might be a bit too high. Too many sets, too many reps, too much weight.
Heavy. Yeah.
Just too much.
Yeah.
There is significant evidence to support that consuming more carbohydrates, whether it's in that 24-hour window or even 48 hours, like before and surrounding, can actually mitigate most of those symptoms. Central nervous system fatigue in most circumstances. Yeah. So most of the time, they're finding that this overreaching that we talk about, not overtraining because that's every single session.
Yeah.
But overreaching is actually as a result of not consuming enough carbohydrates.
Yeah, okay.
And so what ends up happening is, you imagine the body just doesn't have enough fuel to do what you're trying to
Get it
do.
to do, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like car runs out of gas
Yeah.
and just basically bottoms
Shits
out.
itself.
Yeah. But they're finding with athletes, like high performance athletes, that if you actually adequately match their carbohydrate intake with their energy output plus additional, because you need like additional energy availability above their output. It's to do with thermic effect of food and all sorts of other stuff that actually burns more calories than what your body says it has on a monitor. The more carbs
You need.
yeah, the better the response from
Yeah.
the central nervous system. So the better the recovery,
Yeah.
which is crazy. And the better the performance. And then obviously we don't feel as though we're overreaching or overtraining.
Exactly.
So in most circumstances, the overtraining can be fixed by increasing carbohydrates or overreaching.
Yeah.
However, there is still a percentage there where no matter how many carbohydrates you've consumed,
yeah. It's still going to happen.
you've flogged yourself
Yeah.
and it's too much and
Yeah.
you've gone too far.
Yeah. Well, I remember messaging you being like, I just vomited. And you're like, shit.
Stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go get some coconut water. I
Yeah.
said, yeah.
Sculled back like a litre of coconut water.
At that point, you've really reached the point of no return. You need to go and get electrolytes. You need to calm your CNS. And then, basically take a step back. Take a rest day the next day.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I took a rest day the next day.
Yeah. I have to admit, actually, the last couple of sessions, I felt pretty fucking cooked. Like the last few sessions. I went and did tricep dips the other day. Don't know why I chose to do tricep dips. Haven't done them in ages. Like a year. And did tricep dips. And like I couldn't move my arms for 3 days. Just wouldn't move. Just couldn't. Yeah. I was like this. And I was like, that's what you get for doing something you haven't done in a long time and just going like hard out with it.
Yeah.
So
That's my issue as well, as I'm like, I'm strong. I can do it.
push till failure, every single thing.
Yeah. But then my mental game plays a big role in that, because if I don't push till failure, then I end up feeling shit about my session.
Yeah, it's this weird balance, isn't it? Like,
And I think on social media as well, nowadays they drill into you that you need to push till failure.
go hard or go home.
Yeah. Which is shit, because...
Not every session is what I'm going to
No.
say. I think that you can probably have room in your week for one or two of those, right? And the ones that are a really good session today, and it's like, just keep an eye on how you feel the next day. The DOMs are they're gonna happen here and there, but if you like can't function, you're drinking enough water, you're eating enough carbs or like eating a carbohydrate intake. If you can't function the next day, like even things like shaking and stuff like that,
Yeah.
like, okay, cool, I probably pushed
Went a
myself
little
a little
too
bit too far. And also, as I said, joint pain, ligament pain. Things like your hip flexors starting to kick in a lot. I find my hip flexors do that.
Yeah, my lower back. is
Low
what-
back.
Yeah.
And that's when all right, that session, as much as what I was really excited about the lifts and the PBs I hit, maybe not all of them were as efficient as what I would have wanted.
Yeah.
So you've got to do a lot of reflecting with
Exactly
overtraining.
right.
And look, the other part that comes into it, people who are going and doing, 2-3 hours of weights,
Oh my God.
and then they're also doing like,
Ridiculous amounts of cardio.
yeah, like they're in the gym for hours and hours. If you're not out of there in under 2 hours, I'll say max, but 1.5 hours really, you're either talking too much or there's too much in your program.
Yeah, you have too much volume.
Not including steps though.
Yeah.
Like I think with steps, it's just walking.
Yeah.
But then there is like some evidence and studies to say that past 16,000 steps or even past 12,000, that they saw specifically in females that the muscular adaptations were that they couldn't adapt to training stimulus, meaning like strength training. They couldn't get stronger because they were always using their legs for steps.
Yeah, okay.
So overuse of legs for steps, not that they were atrophying,
Yeah.
but they just
Didn't have that energy reserve.
which explains a lot why in prep when steps are really high that PBs start to dwindle because we do have to increase steps because we keep adapting to the amount of steps that we've got.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of up and up and up and up, and you take breaks and stuff, but you run out of time and you would keep going up and up and up. So, yeah, they found that, steps for legs were, if they were too high, they couldn't engage their muscles properly for their sessions.
Interesting.
So there's lots of signs of overtraining or going too hard, and I think, you and I are pretty bad for it.
I think it's really, really tricky to find that happy medium.
Yeah.
Especially with so much outside noise about what's right and what's wrong.
You really need to actually be very attuned to your own body.
Yeah, I was going to say there's lots of different types of barriers that you need to be able to overcome and push through and understand in order to find that middle point.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, you're going into the gym, you're either wasting your own time going in, not training hard enough, or... And you could be wasting months as well.
Yeah.
I admittedly have, in some years between shows, not increased my carb intake, not really done much, for 6 months, a year, just gone, can't be bothered. And haven't increased my muscle mass.
Yeah.
Haven't been actively in a growth phase. And wasn't going to the gym trying to hit PBs, was just going in and just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Having done bodybuilding for 11 years, we have to do that sometimes.
I was going to say, I feel like I'm sort of at that point where I'm like, oh, I'm tired all the time and I don't know why and rah, rah, rah. And like I am just listening to my body and going, okay, a couple of weeks of going in when you have the energy so that you're able to put everything into that session.
That's right. You'd rather a quality session
than, say, smashing my body for 5 sessions a week, getting to the weekend and being absolutely fucked and not being able to process.
Not being able to function.
Yeah. Utilising the fact that I have the opportunity to have downtime and to be able to listen to my body. I'm not in prep.
Yeah.
Although I am in my off-season, and off-season is about growing muscle, but I can't do that if I'm not in the right headspace.
Yeah, and also as well, like growth doesn't necessarily happen when you're constantly stressed or you're constantly stimulated or you're, this is actually something interesting too, like on the like we're in the middle of a live podcast. It's like, this is where we need to look at, okay, is there a potential for a deload? Is there a potential for a full week off training? Then you'll also struggle with that.
Yeah.
Me going, Chloe,
we're not
you're not allowed in the gym for a whole week.
Yeah.
I think the additional rest days here and there are often so crucial, and we beat ourselves up for them. We're like, oh, but I've got a 5-day training program. It's like, yeah, if.
Yeah, well, see, for me, I prioritise my at least one upper body session, preferably shoulders, because that's what at the moment we're trying to grow, and a minimum of 2 leg sessions a week.
Even if you did, like, and this is what I've done sometimes as well, was where like I'll do, one muscle group that I know I don't need to grow that much. I might do it in alternating weeks.
Yeah.
So like I'll go, like you said, shoulders one week and then back the next. Or like I could not train back for like a couple of weeks. Yeah. It's still fucking massive.
Yeah. So, but that's like me for my quads. So like my glutes and hamstring sessions will take priority over.
Correct.
So I'll do like my full leg day, so like my compound leg day, plus my glutes and hammies.
Yeah. And then also as well, what you can do for, and this would apply to any bodybuilding athlete. If you know you've got a strong muscle group, you don't need to train as hard. You don't need to hit PBs with it. You know, like, because you imagine too, if you're trying to bring up your glutes and your quads just keep growing, it's kind of like, it's a race where like your glutes are just always going to lose, right? So I don't, I go in and do maybe 3 back exercises in a week if I'm lucky, and I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to grow it. I'm like,
see, my issue is I enjoy training back, but it's like I know I need to grow my shoulders.
You know what's interesting though? The wider your back gets, the wider your shoulders look. Yeah, so there is that optical illusion that you can create with it where, people tell me like, you've got jacked shoulders. I'm like, no, I've actually got a really big back. My shoulders aren't actually that strong, but they look bigger because I can flare. Yeah. You imagine with a smaller back, your shoulders aren't as wide. Yeah. So they come in a little bit more narrow. Now we're going more into bodybuilding. We can't help ourselves.
What's the habit?
It's funny actually, when Alex and I go for walks at night, we always end up fucking talking about bodybuilding. Yeah. Like we talk about, last night we were talking about, I was like, is there such a thing in Olympia as being too big in bodybuilding? And he was like, well, no, not necessarily, but not symmetrical enough. And I was like, yeah, so obviously like big gut, right? You know, for a bodybuilder. And I was like, but like size-wise, can you get marked down for being too big as a, 2-on-2 competitor at Olympia? And he's like, no. I was like, that's fascinating.
Wow.
Like get as big as possible.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the only division you can do that with. But I think we're going to finish up the podcast. I don't think we've got anything else we want to talk about with overtraining. Or there's a difference between overtraining and overreaching, which I've already talked about in another podcast. So if you haven't been here for very long, go back into the podcast and look for the overtraining / overreaching potty. But this one we really want to talk about, are you training hard enough? Are you not training hard enough?
Understanding your capabilities and...
Lila's, she's angry. She's angry that you're not training hard.
Do better.
Do better, guys.
But yeah,
Don't be a pussy.
What am I trying to say? Understanding your capabilities and not doubting the capabilities that you have.
Correct. Yeah. Don't doubt yourself, but also don't be a dickhead.
And utilize a coach, or even if it means training with a friend, you know, so that they can give you that extra push, trying to find ways in which you're able to help yourself. And
that coach or that friend, they can be a moderator. They can be the person who is able to go, you're a person who notoriously pushes yourself too hard, stop, you're going to snap something.
Yeah.
Or you could probably do a couple more reps, or you could probably push that little bit harder. And, whether they're training with you, whether it's a coach, who you're checking in with. I know that I've got a couple clients, as I said, that were probably for years really selling themselves short prior to starting coaching with weights, and then coming on board and going, I've never been stronger.
Yeah.
And
find some accountability.
Yeah.
A way of being accountable, not only for yourself, but for people around you.
And your strong body, like you lifting weights and being strong, it looks very different to what you think it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some banging bods come out of and they're going, oh my God, I'm so strong and I love the way I look. And it's like, yes, those two things do go hand in hand. Not everybody needs to be a jacked figure competitor or, have fucking massive quads. Like, it's very hard to get to that point.
Yeah.
So you're not going to...
You have to be some sort of fucked up.
You got to be a little bit neurotic and insane and a sucker for pain to be able to get to that point. And I think that you'll know. You will know if you're at that point, because you will be pushing yourself so hard that you don't care what anyone else is doing. And that's that fine line where you can end up injured, you can end up...
Which is where I think I'm at. I had probably like a good couple of weeks where I was really pushing my weight, really pushing my body. And now it's like...
Sounds like Chloe's taking a deload. This is the end of this podcast. We're going to have words. We're going to have fisticuffs.
I'm like, fuck,
it's the second day you've come in and told me you're tired.
I won't need to train tonight. No, I start my program.
Wait, what day is it? Tuesday? You can't just wipe off a program on a Tuesday. and actually, you do. You have the new program starting, don't you?
I do.
Well, we'll talk. We'll talk. It's been a while since you've done a deload.
Yeah.
A while.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. Like that's... Yeah, I know we're digressing and we need to finish. You might be due for a deload.
Yeah.
If you're overtraining, and if you train really fucking hard, your deloads might end up being sooner than you thought they would be. I've had people deload every 12 to 16 weeks and not have any trouble with it at all.
Yeah.
But when you can start to see those signs, and like you said, not really wanting to go into the gym as well, that's when you know you're probably due for a full deload. I was doing them every 8 weeks previously. And yeah, it came back and my strength was exactly where I left it. So
yeah, 1 week won't hurt.
Anyway, Chloe's going to finish up now. She's going to fall asleep with the baby.
Right, you're the one that's supposed to be tired.
I'm going to keep going. Yeah, no, I don't know what new parents survive on. It's survive on hopes and dreams, not sleep. And we're delirious by this point.
Yep.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Looking forward to doing another vlog or podcast for you soon. Again, if you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, let us know. This one was actually inspired by Alex.
Well done, Alex.
Alex gave us the idea yesterday, although some podcast ideas he's given me I've had to reject. They've been pretty left of centre.
Well, Josh still wants to do...
No.
Josh and Alex.
He wants his airtime, doesn't he?
He does.
He thinks it's going to get us all these viewers.
He wants his fame.
Imagine if our viewers went down. It got reported.
He'd hate that.
He just wants to be famous.
That's it.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Looking forward to doing the next podcast. Only one this week. We're going to do a new one next week. Maybe a completely different topic.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
All right, bye.
Bye.